Hello Pioneers, today we have a student who graduated from IRSC that went on to become a Dependency Case Manager. So here today to share his story with us is Kerry Dulcio.
Can you tell us when you got started at IRSC?
Okay, so my time at IRSC started around August of 2014. Before that, I was in school in Chicago, Roosevelt University. It was my first school, at least my first university. And I spent 2 years there before bombing, failed all my classes, made no connections, wasted gobs of time and gobs of money. And I essentially dropped out of college. And so I spent about a year or so trying to find my place in the world. So I moved back from Chicago to here, to the Treasure Coast. And I was like, well, there's a school nearby here. Maybe I can see if they can accept me. And so transferred some things over, made the calls, signed up, came out of pocket because I lost my financial aid, but I learned, learned not to mess with money. And so, yeah, around August, I took 4 classes and I was like, you know what? This feels comfortable enough. I feel like more mature in my ways, whereas before it was a very like young, misunderstood idea about what education was. And I didn't quite know even what I wanted to do with my life. And by the time I was back in school at IRC, I kind of had a sort of tentative idea about what I wanted to do, and that kind of flourished into something stronger. And so after that semester, I say, you know what? Maybe it's about time I secure a degree. And so I stayed for another semester, and then that became into an associate's degree in music, of all things, actually, because I was like, you know what? Music seems like my kind of vibe. I'll do music. But then I was like, you know, I kind of want to stick around, but what do I really want to do? I always like to work with kids. How do I work with kids? Well, the human services degree kind of has some strings connected with the community. So I'll do that. And so I really loved it. I actually got straight A's the entire way through, like from like the start of the thing to the end of the degree. Straight A's all the way through. You know what? This is it. This is for me. And so yeah, that's how it came to be. After some failings, bounced back, and here I am now.
What prompted you to change from music into human services? Like, I know you said you wanted to work with kids, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So initially I got into music because I was working with my brother. He's great at music. He plays all different types of instruments. So I kind of like wanted to like be connected with him, to like do something financially stable with him. Maybe like make some music, maybe start a band, yada yada yada. But then that kind of it didn't quite work out. Obviously, we're still brothers, you know, like I love him to death. But I was like, you know, this isn't quite for me. It doesn't quite work with the soul like I was like hoping it would. As I was in the music degree, I met Jenny Champagne, and she had this thing called LEAP, and it's the Mentorship Institute at IRSC. But outside of that, she would work with little kids in the area, in the Fort Pierce area, and like just she would work with them, and she would reconnect them with the officers and law enforcement, with resources, sort of encourage them to be more involved with the community. And so after working with her with those kids, I felt like really enchanted by like how energized and how hopeful like a lot of them were, even though they were just living in like bad areas, they still had a whole lot of hope. Like these little kids, you know what I mean? Like just like had like so much to give. And that inspired me to like want to work with them. And so that kind of tied into the human services. And so after like doing a little bit of research, asking around, they're like, yeah, so you can do this and like maybe segue that into working with the community, maybe starting some type of nonprofit organization, maybe doing something with an already established organization. And so I was like, you know what, this sounds like it's for me. And I took a leap of faith, hopped on board, and I've been on the wagon ever since.
So, did you participate in any organizations or programs at IRC?
Yeah, oh yeah, I was involved with the field. Um, Leap, I was involved in with the Mentorship Institute. the radio club. That was my soul right there. Loved working with radio, with Dr. Brooks, with the students who I interviewed, with the radio staff themselves, who were always encouraging us to step outside of our comfort zones, to think outside the box, to be challenged and to challenge others, to not shy away from new information that might contradict your own. Yeah, I took a lot of lessons from the radio club, and that was incredibly useful for who I am now. Whereas I can watch the news now and be like, you know what, I don't sound right. Let me do some more research. And so, yeah, it's great. Let's see what else. I think those were the two. I was kind of like involved with all the clubs essentially because I did photography at the school. So any club that needed their pictures or just something like that they can like show to the school, I was there. I was like the go-to guy with the camera, and I was always there. So I definitely did work with like at least 80% of the clubs, just taking their pictures at the events. I can go down the list, but I was at all the events, all of them.
Can you give us an example of something that stuck with you whenever you were going through the human services degree?
The teachers were probably what stuck with me the most, just from their own experiences, because they keep it real. Like they will tell you stories that will be like, but you feel like you can still handle it because they explain it in such a way that's like, you know what, this isn't the end of the world. Um, these are human beings. You would have to work with them on the level that they are at. And so it was one story that one teacher told me about, how she was a social worker and she was working with a child. And the child had a father who was a bit of a strict guy, let's just say that. And the dad would often say, "Hey, make sure you're home at a certain point in time," and say like 9 o'clock. And this kid's like about 13 years old. He's like, "Hey, make sure you come home at this time. You're you are not to be late." One time the kid was late, and the dad got angry. So before the kid came home, he boiled some oil on the stove, and when the child walked in, he took the oil and flung it at the child and burned like half the child. And so naturally we all gasped. But she was explaining like how she was still able to connect with the kid to sort of, like have him laugh here and there, to like inspire him to like just not give up. And that was incredible to me how she was able to do that. And like, well, how this kid would just like, if it was me, I'd be less inclined to like laugh in any situation that is like that at all. But she was able to like at least inspire something along the lines of strength in him, where that was cool for us and for me in particular. So the teachers, they keep it real, they keep it honest, they don't try to sugarcoat things. It's like, well, this is the real world, this is what we live in. Sure, I could try to lie and say, okay, it's all rainbows and butterflies, but it's real out here. And so don't take that for granted, but still have empathy, still be genuine in the work that you do. Um, we can all have some hard times here and there, but the key is just to kind of do what you can to negate those things, first of all. But if you do happen to fall into hard times, know that there's always help and resources, and just be a decent person to folks who are having a harder time than you. That was cool for us. So yeah, the teachers were awesome. I liked them a lot. I was on my A game. So I was like, you know what? I can take some time away to assist some other clubs here and there. So I would do that, in fact. Yeah. Good student, model citizen.
Did you have any mentors at the college?
Oh, a whole lot of mentors. I can go down the list. Let's see. Dr. Brooks, he connected me to so many outlets that were incredibly informative, factual, which is a key thing here. Um, and they offered like non-biased news reporting, which I rely on to this day. Um, Obviously, with all the teachers in my program, Mrs. Lynn, Dr. Dyer, Dr. Cohen, both of them. And of course, Jenny Champagne, she's a wonderful human being. She took me on all these events that were like um, related to my own field, to like helping the communities, like these types of non-profit events. She would take me to kind of say, okay, here's what you could do if you were to go down this route. Here's what you can do if you want to go down that route. And she opened like a lot of doors for me as well. So yeah, there was a great deal of help that I had along the way that is just entirely invaluable. Made me feel like I could do the work. That it wasn't like um, it was impossible. I could be like stronger in my own efforts to like help others, to help themselves essentially. And so like those are the folks who a lot of them I still keep in contact with. Dr. Dyer, I talk with here and there. Dr. Brooks, of course, I talk with here and there. Yeah, they were the ones who took me from down here and brought me up to way up here. So I am in debt to them. They were a great resource for me, and they helped me in ways that I couldn't even explain. So I owe them a lot.
I never even thought about that, that human services professors would have that skill set of like having worked with clients, being able to build up and foster
Yep.
those really great relationships with the people in that program.
Yeah, because I mean, like they had the experiences. Like they have been like these are like social workers who went into teaching or human services professionals who went into teaching, psychologists, clinical psychologists who are like, you know what, I want to like take what I've learned and teach others. And so they have like gobs of information, gobs of experiences and useful tidbits that they can offer up to us to sort of, use in our own little toolbox of knowledge. So that's what I do on an everyday basis.
That's a really good point. That's something that I've realized is that a lot, if not all of our teachers have like real world experience. They're not
Mm-hmm.
just purely academics. And I know some universities are willing to do that, but every teacher I've had's had really relevant, normally like 10 years of experience, really
Mm-hmm.
great stuff that they can draw on personal experiences instead of just theory, you know?
Yeah, they actually have the real life experiences. It's not just observation. They have experimentations, and it's what they have, like the mistakes that they've made. They're like, well, don't do that. Do this instead. Like that's incredibly helpful.
Did you do an internship before you graduated?
I did. I actually did my internship at Leap Institute, the Leap Mentorship Institute. It was an insightful experience, to say the least. You get to see how the faculty connects with the student body and how they can influence them and inspire them and to mentor them to sort of be students that they thought that they could not be, essentially. Whereas say a student was like, you know what, I probably would fail this test, I don't even know why I tried. The mentor would be like, hey, like, don't think like that. Let's work together. Let's study. Here's my schedule. Let's work with it. I can link you up with other tutors who might know more than I do. And so that's invaluable as well as like have those mentors who can sort of take the students who are like disenfranchised and sort of make them feel more um, able, capable to like do the work that they need to do. So I had my own unofficial mentors, but seeing like how the official ones work, I was like, you know what? If I ever become some type of staff at IRSC, I'd be doing the same exact thing as them because that's great work that they do. Like from the teachers to other just staff members, loads of mentors, loads of helpful folk out there on the IRSC campus.
Is that something you've thought about doing, like returning and being a professor one day?
I did. I still, so in between the human services degree and where I am now, I was like, you know what, I would want to teach too, because again, I like to work with kids. Kids are cool in my opinion. Like they keep it real, they're usually honest, and they often just mean no harm, at least not any intentional harm. So I was like, you know what, if I ever do teaching, I would either be a professor or a middle school teacher. And I kind of danced between the two. And then I settled on middle school teaching. But if I ever were to land some type of job at IRSC, I would love to teach there. Well, I mean, of course, you would have to have a master's degree and higher. I don't have that one just yet, even though I have started a master's degree. Haven't finished it yet. But I would love to teach at IRC. It's one of those dream jobs, in fact. Same with middle school teaching. I could do either one. I like working with kids, but I also like working with the more educated folk too as well, because like they can kind of understand you better, or at least what you're trying to communicate. Whereas when it comes to like the younger ones, it might go through one ear and not the other. It's like you kind of have to walk it back to really shrink it down to bite-size information. Like, oh, it's like, oh, now I understand you, Mr. Dulcio, you know? But time will tell. I'm comfortable where I am right now, so we'll see how it all plays out in the future.
Do you have a favorite memory of your time at IRSC? Because you're pretty involved, so there should be a lot of competition there.
Favorite memory? Probably the first time, or at least the happiest time, was when I submitted an essay. So when I was doing my music degree, which was before the bachelor's degree, um, I had a history class, and for one of our assignments, we had to talk about the implications of something happening now and how it relates historically. And my instructor loved the essay so much, she's like, hey, you should turn this into an audio format, into a podcast. And so I did just that. And that actually went on to win the multimedia award that was happening that year. And I think I won like $300 or whatever it was. And so I was like, you know what? This is awesome. So I not only did I ace the essay, I got first place in the contest and I got money off it. That was a good time. And then what happened after that was that made its way to the radio station and they actually aired the audio segment. So I was even happier. I was like, oh my goodness, this is like the best thing that has happened to me. So that was probably the best thing that happened to me. So yeah, that was awesome. The fact that one thing led to another and to another, and it all connected into just happy times of success.
Where do you see yourself a few years from now? Like further into your career, what do you picture yourself doing?
So as far as where I see myself in the next 5 years, um, you know what? I still have my ambition to start a nonprofit organization, like a media, local, community-based organization that works with the kids in the area, which is just the Fort Pierce lower socioeconomic area, to kind of galvanize them to want to become involved with media, to have a voice, to speak up about what's happening around them, to not be disenfranchised, because some of them are. Like a lot of them have hope and they have expectations, but like a lot of them are just so disconnected from what's happening on the news, what actually influenced them, even on their level. And so I would like want to like teach them to learn the tools of media to reconnect with what's happening and to have a say and to at least like to speak up and to maybe make some changes, because it has to start on some level, and why not start with them? And so just to kind of encourage them to get involved in the process, to dissect what's real, what's lies, and to use that to their advantage. And it would just like be like a sort of organization, that lets them use things like radio equipment, interviews, like them interviewing their teachers, interviewing politicians, and just having a say in like what might be happening. And I still have that goal, so I'm like kind of working on that, but like not so fruitfully, but that's still like on my list of things like really buckle down on and to actually flesh out, because it seems great in my head, obviously, but like have it be like an actual thing that is growing and working in the community. That would be my dream come true. I could die a happy man. So that's on the horizon. Fingers crossed I get the connections and I find the right people and they like, I like that idea. I'll work with you too. And so one thing will lead to another. And before long, we'll be doing some good in the world.
So you currently work in human services. So what is it like now that you are live and you have hands-on experience and you are outside of the classroom? What is it like?
So my job is as a child welfare case manager, and I work with abused, neglected, and abandoned children. And it's a job that there's never a boring day. Let's just say that. It's always interesting and it's sometimes heartbreaking, but you find ways to connect to make it work. And there are times when I've been let down by the judicial system, whereas I would hope that they would side more with the kids, but sometimes they side more with the parents, which isn't in the best interest of the kids, which is what we work towards. And so, but there are other times where it's like, oh, happy day. Like in my line of work, the best day for me, at least the best days for me are adoption days, where you get the kids who have been through so much, they find happy families. You go into the courthouse, they're all dressed up nice. They got their photographers and balloons, and they've got smiling faces. You walk into the courtroom, the judge does his thing, they sign their all of the documents. The judge lets the kid sit in his chair. They take pictures. It's so wholesome. So my time is divided pretty evenly between the field, the courthouse, and the office. But for all of its um, frustrations and all the times that I want to yank my own hair out, the kids are what make it worth it. And the fact that they are so resilient, and even with all that has happened to them, they see you and they jump for joy, and it's like, oh my goodness, how are you still happy? You know what I mean? It's like it's critical to us, like be like there for the kids. Like we can help the parents out, that's nice and that's awesome, but we're there for the kids mostly. And so we kind of have to make sure that they're taken care of first before we can help the parents, who we obviously do help as well, because you can't have one without the other, especially if we want to reunify them. But it's a great job. It's a tricky job sometimes, but it's a job that it's a wholesome one.
Do you have any advice for how to avoid burnout? I could see where that would help students, and it would definitely help people going into your field in the human services world.
Definitely have a good scheduling criteria. Like you don't want to like continually put things off for tomorrow, because then you do that and it gets overwhelming when you have a mountain of work at the end of the week that you have to catch up on. That's one. Take time off, because seeing kids and dealing with like heroin addicted mothers and meth addicted fathers, it can be a lot to handle on a day-to-day basis. So you kind of have to take time off. Be generous with your time off. Do not shy away from taking time off, because once you get so absorbed and you devote so much of your time in your life to the job, then you're kind of sacrificing other aspects of your life, and then you feel like you can't take it. And again, don't take the work home with you. There are some people who will do just that, where they feel like so committed and they will work the whole night through. It's like, well, if the work can like at least wait a day, if it can, then do it, because you don't want to force yourself to not have anything else in your life except for the job, because then you lose track of what your hobbies are, what your friends are, or I guess who your friends are, and other avenues that you could possibly be traveling down. And so I still have my hobbies. I still focus on other things, other intimate relationships in my life. I do love the job for all of its shortcomings and all the hardships. I do love the job, but I don't take it home with me. So yeah, just as far as schoolwork goes, again, be on top of things. Don't wait till the last minute. Be aware of due dates and deadlines, and don't wait till a day before, because even that might be not enough time. Give yourself enough of a window, at least of a space, to like work, at least not feel rushed when you're getting closer to the deadline, because then you feel like, you know what, why did I do this? Why am I even in this field right now? I don't need this stress. Then you kind of want to tap out. That's no bueno. So yeah, have good sense of, and also just have good relationships, because there are folks who will help you if you feel like you're stuck or if you're struggling. If you feel like overwhelmed by, let's say you have 5 visits to do in one day, it's like, well, I have a friend, she kind of likes me. Maybe she can kind of help me do like some of those visits. And she often will, because maybe she has a free schedule at 6 and after, you know? So have those relationships, treat people like decent human beings, and you'll go far in life.
So the first part was treat it like a marathon instead of a sprint, right? Look at the big
Yes.
picture. And the second was to have a great support network. So both of those sound like
Have a
really good
good
ideas.
support structure. I mean, in fact, in classes, there will be times where I was like, you know, I don't want to study for this test alone. Let me see if Manny wants to do a group session, and then he might have ideas that I didn't think about, or have information that I didn't even think about that I can use on the test myself, and that so we click in that way. And so I always loved group study sessions more than anything else. I love working in groups. So that's my sort of lesson to sort of imbue in the mass, like just have good relationships. It'll get you far in life.
So that pretty well wraps it up. I normally end with what advice would you give students at IRC, but we just kind of answered it because it tied in with the social work. So
Yep.
yeah.
Kill two birds with one question.